episode 17.
We back.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to get started here, everybody.
Sorry for the delay.
Sorry for the delay. This is different than how we normally do it. Normally,
Kinda nervous,
it's,
man. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah.
Dak and I sitting together on my couch talking some shit, and it's so amazing to have everybody here out to celebrate our 100th episode. So I just want everyone just to round of applause. Thank you so much.
We're back.
We
We're
back. We had to start the episode with a we back.
We're back. We're in it. What's good, Malik?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, excited. It's our 100th episode. We've been doing this for a few years, and this is the first time we've actually done like a real-time live event. So, really, really exciting stuff. Housekeeping, not many rules here. If you want to go grab a drink, go grab one. You want to go grab some snacks, go grab one. You need to go to the washroom, go do it. You know, it's a rule-free zone here, everybody. But take care of the venue because we paid for it. So
Yeah. In terms of the format, we're going to do like maybe 30 minutes of a recorded podcast, and then after that, we'll just have like a live Q&A. We got some prizes.
we got some prizes.
some giveaways.
We got prizes.
You have to ask a question to get a prize. So start thinking of, you know, who's fresher, who's the leader of the friend group, stuff like that.
You know what I mean? This is what endless years of friendship does.
Yeah, that's
to
what we
a
do.
fucking guy, you know what
All
I
right,
mean?
should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I think the best way for us to start is like talking about the evolution of the Mad Mix.
Yeah, totally.
Kinda
And this is a question that we got from a number of different folks when we sent that post on Instagram, but we kind of wanted to tell the story about how we got to this point. And it's not this glamorous story around, you know, some big time event and anything happening. No, it's just really like what started out was just a school project almost. And that's what it kind of felt like from the beginning.
2015, right?
2015, Dak and I were at Humber. Shout out to Cam.
We got Bear Humber.
We got Bear Humber people here. And, you know, we wanted to do something that was a little bit different. We wanted to do something that allowed us to, you know, stand out in front of our classmates, give us an opinion to talk to. I felt so much of the time in advertising, marketing industry that you go to class and people are just, the teacher's telling you, this is what the trends are, this is what you got to pay attention to, this is what, you know, you should learn. And I felt like there's a bit of a gap, right? There wasn't a lane or an avenue for, you know, especially two young black guys to, you know, voice their opinions of the industry, right?
I think you're making it seem more glamorous than it was.
I very well might be doing that.
So it started with, shout out to Nadine Evans.
Yeah.
We had a guest speaker come in our marketing class, and she was basically encouraging us to brand ourselves for graduation. So, you know, building your personal brand through a blog or through videos or whatever it is online. Yeah, your personal brand. And me, you, and the other member we won't name.
The other member
no longer here anymore.
We should tell that.
He's alive, but he's not. Shout out to Anthony. We just like thought, let's start a blog. Let's do weekly articles about any topic from a marketing perspective, 400 to 600 words twice a week. The Mad Mix name, I don't remember who came up with it, but also it was our initials. So there was Malik, Anthony, and Dak. And then I was obsessed with Mad Men, so I think it was like a perfect pairing there, maybe?
Yeah, it's like anyone who was in the program obviously was obsessed with Mad Men.
Yeah, advertising program.
Yeah, that's like that should have been the textbook, I feel.
Literally. So we were doing that for a while, right? Like we're making articles. No one was really reading them when you look at the analytics. I think it was just like...
I mean, yours, but
yeah.
Mine pretty decent.
Oh, man. I think it was like we were spending all this time writing these articles that no one was reading, and they were short articles, so we really couldn't get all of our thoughts out.
Well, yeah,
in a way,
like
know?
Totally. I think it worked for what it was at the time. We had a lot of free time as students. We didn't really have like full-time jobs. You know, we kind of just like wrote articles on like the latest like Snapchat update or like what
when DJ Khaled was on Snapchat and the jet ski, we wrote about that
kind of shit. And then, you know, I think like from my perspective, it was like a really good tool for me to like talk about in interviews, right? So when you're a young person starting out in the industry, you always want that talking point, right? So that's exactly what we did. Like we basically used as a selling point on our resumes to talk about like, this is what I do on the side. I have a side hustle, like hire me kind of thing. And like, I mean, it worked, right?
We got the jobs we wanted. And then I think at some point we're just like, let's do a different media format. We started to look into video interviews. So some of the folks here we've actually had, shout out to Jerome over there with the camera.
Yeah, shout out to Jerome.
Our video interview where it was like maybe 10-minute videos where we would just talk about, we'd have a guest and we would talk about how they came up in their career and any advice they have for folks that are in that same industry. We did maybe 8 or 9 of those.
Yeah.
And then again, it was like in a 10-minute video, you can't really talk that much about, a person's history and a person's life story and all of that. And you can't really get in depth in like a 5 to 10-minute video. And this was around 2019 when podcasts started to pop up again.
We also needed like something like the video content piece is really, it was fun, but anyone who works in production, looking at you, like a couple other people in the room as well, Jerome would know, like it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort, like, and time that we just didn't have on a weekly basis, right? So like Dak was saying, 2019 kind of rolls over and we're like, well, why don't we do something that's easy? Why don't we just start a fucking podcast or some shit?
And I don't think we knew anyone with a podcast at that time.
No.
But podcasts are great because you can do an hour-long conversation about whatever you want and you can really get in depth. So we kind of just tried it. We're at Malik's condo in 68 Able Street. Shout out to the condo. Right on his kitchen table, just 2 chairs and one mic. Garage band.
Yeah.
Letting it rip. We had some guests come in too, so we'd have 3 chairs on his tiny kitchen table and all of that. And we kept doing that until
I don't know, like 2020. But the funniest part about how we started was we thought that we needed to be formal, right? Like we wrote these scripts out before each one of our podcasts. Like the introductions were like, this is
on this episode we talked about
like we talked about this and that. Like something like realizing like this is like come on now. Like, like this doesn't need to be that formal. And like part of the fun of like what we've done over the last couple of years is really make it our own. But kind of jumping back to 2020, early 2020, we were just finding our groove, right? Like it takes a long time to like get the chemistry going, get the flavor going, have fun with it a little bit, loosen up.
And even like you were still in advertising at that time. I was no longer in the industry. So I was trying not to talk about advertising as much on the podcast because I'm not in the industry anymore. I don't have an active perspective when I'm now transitioning into tech. So I think even when we start to become less formal is also when we start to talk less about advertising, I would say.
Yeah, totally. And that was like the fun part, right? And that's when we were like just getting into the studio. Wish Christian could have been here. Christian was our producer for, a couple months before the pandemic, good times. And then one of our biggest challenges was, how do we keep the flavor going? How do we keep the fun going remotely? I think we did a decent job. Like it obviously kind of hindered our ability to do this, in-person thing, build a bit of a character, have fun with it. But we did it, and we managed to get some like pretty solid guests, a lot of which are in the room here today.
And we have future guests in here as well.
Future guests in here too. But over the years, now that we're back to recording in person, it's really changed the way that we do things. We've have a lot more fun with it. We've loosened up, started to play into the characters, and we hope you guys really enjoy it because we do it for us, but we also do it for our listeners too. So shout out to everybody here again in the room for supporting us in our journey and for what's to come here.
100%, yeah. Do we want to talk? There you go. Do we want to talk about like top moments or like awkward moments, challenges, all of that?
You go first.
Jeez, okay.
We're supposed to think of these things before.
I want it to be spontaneous. That's kind of how we do everything. I was actually thinking while I was walking here of like an awkward moment. And I don't want to reveal who the guest was or anything like that. This is very, very early days, okay? So we're still trying to figure out our groove.
Yeah.
And shout out to that guest. It is what it is.
I think I know which one you're talking
about. It was just a really awkward conversation. Like we were just pulling teeth trying to get responses out of them, and they were just very shy, and it's not something we vetted before. I knew that guest from years back, and I thought maybe they were more confident now, maybe more outgoing, and it just wasn't the case. Hey, Nat in the house over here. So it was just an awkward moment. I think me and Malik kept looking at each other like this is not going to be a good episode. But
Like wrap it up kind of situation.
yeah,
You know?
And shout out to them. We're not going to obviously say what episode that is or who it was, but
Well, that's part of the fun too, right? Like, you know, we jumped into it, like we only started getting guests coming on board, like, you know, in our first maybe like
year two. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like later on, and like anyone who's done an interview kind of like this or has started a podcast will know that like the types of guests that you bring on will definitely determine the success of, you know,
straight up,
of the podcast or the episode, right? So that was like our first experience being like, oh fuck, like a couple minutes in, I was like, this one's gonna be tough, but like, you know, you gotta rely on the old charm here to bring it to life, which was definitely something that we did. But you know, it was a learning experience, and you know, we learned that, you know,
every other guest has been amazing. And
totally.
Every future guest will be great.
Totally. Every guest has been great, and we love them.
What's your awkward moment? Do you have another one?
I don't really have like an awkward moment, but like I think Fanny, this one probably like ties into like the Eaton Center stuff that we were doing. The Eaton Center, remember that?
Explain that.
Okay, so like this would have been in our first, maybe the second season. I can't remember. Like we had
COVID wasn't a.
No, it wasn't.
Obviously,
it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was 2019. And we were looking for like a studio space because we're like, we got to make things official. Like we got to start like getting this going. Like come on. So like Dak did a great job of like looking up some like studios or like places that we could record. And he's like, oh, I found something. I'm like, all right, sweet.
I don't remember how.
I know. I'm just like, let's get right into it. Let's get right to it. Like when can we record? Let's jump in.
Yeah.
And it was like this like pop-up like store like thing in the Eaton Center.
The main level.
It was like at the main level of the Eaton Center, and it was like just these recording booths that were like open to the public. So like someone would be walking around with like their fucking like Cinnabon or some shit, watching us record like a live episode, and we're like, this is a serious topic about advertising, and then like some like mom and her kids would be like walking by and they'd be like, what's going on there?
Yeah, the speaker was outside of the. So people could hear while they're walking by, and sometimes we'd comment on people walking. It would be like, yo, guy in the hat or what.
Like, what do you think about, you know, the latest Instagram update or whatever? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was awkward. It was weird.
It was weird, but like the jokes part was like we had like some of our guests come there, and like the best reaction, like it would have been either like you or like Jay or like somebody like pulling up and being like, whoa, what am I getting myself into? Like, this is super weird. But that was probably like, I wouldn't say it was like a challenge. I'd say it was like a kind of like a funny moment. We kind of made it work. Like
we've had to adjust to a lot of different spaces.
Yeah, a lot of different environments. We're adaptable like that. But
I will say, like when we were in the studio in Liberty Village, we had an official studio. Everything was dope. We were recording video in there. The pandemic hit, and it just was hard to get back in that groove.
Yeah.
Because we spent all these years kind of recording in.
Living
rooms, kitchens, whatever.
We need to take things to the next level.
We get a studio that is amazing, and then
even
everything
had like
shuts
a
down.
photo, like you know that thing in the back, like with the photo. Anyways,
it's like a step and repeat kind of wall. We had TV,
sick.
everything, couches, and then COVID hits, and then we're just back at home recording on Zoom, and the magic wasn't really there for a while, I think.
Yeah,
I felt it at least.
Totally. I mean, damn. I still felt the
on
magic.
My part. Malik performed. But
but that was it was like how we got here, where we think that we're going is like more of this kind of stuff. We definitely see it evolving into, you know, a totally different kind of like platform. It's a great networking opportunity, and you know, we have a lot of ideas and you know, ways that we see this going. So
you're talking about the vision right now?
Yeah, talking about the vision. But I would say like when I look back at where we started recording on my like shitty kitchen table with like one mic, and when it would be like your turn to talk, we'd be like, all right, lean over.
And he was always louder than me, so like we'd put the mic right beside me, but you'd only hear Malik, and I'm like, am I a mouse? Like what is going on? You got a deep voice.
Yeah,
it is.
And talk loud and annoyingly. I get it.
In terms of like vision, before we get into the like submitted Q&A questions, like you said, like I see the Mad Mix being synonymous with community. Like I'd love to do more events like these, even outside of a live show, but we know, like even just looking at the crowd right now, we know so many people from so many different industries, and like if y'all can talk to each other, you can build with each other, you're looking for a graphic designer, you're looking for a content creator, an entrepreneur,
A real estate agent. If you need a place to buy a house, this guy can.
Yeah.
This
We
guy.
got an actor in the building, a legal professional, we got everyone, you know what I mean? So the Mad Mix connections run deep, I think, and we just love to do more community events where everyone can meet each other and socialize, you know?
Totally.
The Mad Mixer,
There it is.
you know what I'm saying?
There it is. Did we just name
I had to
drop
test it,
the
and I think
future?
it tested well.
We
yeah.
may have just done that. We had to test it out.
Jeez, all right. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk. Anything else on vision you want to comment on?
No, not really. Let's jump into Q&A.
Sweet. Okay. How
So,
are we for time? We're good.
We have a number of questions that people submitted to us. We'll kind of go through those. We'll allow you guys to ask some questions, and obviously give away some good prizes. Shout out to MLSE. This whole event is unofficially sponsored by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment.
All right, so we got our first question. Since you've both moved on from the advertising world, how do you see the world of marketing and advertising now any different than before? Shout out to Nina for that question.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't be too jaded on this one.
Yeah, I mean, like this is literally what we do. Like this is what we do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like from leaving advertising, but like when I look back on 2020 was a tough year. Definitely a year where there's a lot of like bullshit that went on in the world, to say it, articulate it poorly.
Yeah.
But I would say like the industry's changed in a number of different ways, and I think there's definitely more of a focus and more of a lens on, diversity and inclusion. I think brands have an opportunity and a responsibility to deliver against the things that will ultimately help communities be better. I think like the industry has kind of like shifted from like, I mean, some of it still exists from like product pushing, but I think that like brands can do a better job and a bigger job in terms of like corporate social responsibility, right? Like we've all seen these promises, these DE&I promises that literally fucking every agency or every company has put out in the last couple of years.
And
but
where's
like,
it now?
yeah, where are we at now, right? So I think that like now that the world's returned to normal, like the way that we communicate to the public is totally different. It should be totally different, right? We have a lens that, that we should be applying to any work that kind of goes out the door. And like, not everyone's going to get it right. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about building and learning to get better and like learning from your mistakes and like how to actually engage communities and people that, are affected by, marginalized communities are affected by, bullshit that happens all the time in the world, right? So I think that like brands can play a bit of a space in that with like, obviously some very, they gotta tread lightly, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I saw this question a bit differently. I looked at it as in, how do I view like the advertising industry, now that I'm outside of it for a few years. And we started as these two bright-eyed, account coordinators. We love the job so much. We love the industry. Any of my friends can attest to it. Every conversation somehow I'd weave in whatever I was working on at that agency at the time.
Oh yeah. Like I worked on home hardware.
He would chant home
I was
hardware
like,
all the
this.
time.
I would like
as if
go,
they were paying his bills.
I'd be like going hard for like a fucking like
Here's
rake
how.
sale or something like that. It's like whenever we would make an ad about a rake, and I'd be like, man, I'd like send it to my parents. I'd like repost it on like Facebook and Instagram, being like, man, you gotta get this rake, man. And it's like
as if he's making money off of it.
I know, and I was just like, I felt a sense of purpose in that. I was like, it was a good rake. Like, I mean,
it was a good rake.
CIL 401 Golf Green, literally.
But like our identity was tied to what we did, and I think when we start to break out of that, and you can kind of look at the industry for what it is, And obviously I'm a bit jaded because,
Big
it
time.
was long nights. It was very stressful. Mental health was not, a core focus at that time, 2018, kind of before that. Now it's a trend. We can talk about that later. But I just found there was no work-life balance and I was super stressed out. And when I got out of that industry, I was kind of just looking at, why are people still there? But it's really just more of a personal thing, right? Like, I think it depends on what agency you work for, what kind of client you have, and what kind of person you are. But for me, it wasn't the best fit. And I look at it now as like a good stepping stone. I learned a lot about managing people, managing clients, and, some skills that's very transferable and has helped me get my job in design now, but I'm not going back to the advertising.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think where I started to turn in the advertising industry was like when I realized that like the agency that I worked for like wasn't really doing anything for me. Then I realized that's when my passion started to die, right? And I think that's like where things started to flip over, because I remember like being so excited about certain things and finding that I was finding a lot of purpose and getting a lot of energy out of what I was doing. But when I realized that I kind of like matured in that industry for a few years, I started to realize that like the place that I'm working at actually like doesn't like care about me the way that I think, right? And I think that's probably part of like the process of not necessarily why I got out of it, but like where I started to care a little bit less about the product that I was putting out.
Yeah.
And when I started to care less about that, then I felt that like that was a dangerous place for me to play, because I was like, well, if I don't care about what I'm doing, like why am I still doing it? Right? And, totally.
Yeah.
And I don't think that like this is something that's necessarily as I've escaped, but I think it's something that has sort of reframed my perspective on, the industry as a whole.
Like, we used to break down ad campaigns on the podcast. I don't know if you guys that's how nerdy we were about this industry, right?
Like we still kind of do,
We have a different lens on it now, right?
Yeah, totally.
All right, next question. How do you define success? And that's by Anika.
What is this, like an interview or something?
And I think we can approach that, however, I think I'll just give a short answer. This for me is success. Like, having people show up to our podcast event, and like a good amount of people, and a lot more people that weren't here donated and they supported. So for me, that's success, to see that we've had some sort of impact here.
Yeah, and like, the fact that we have people who like listen to every single episode, like Alex over here, like every time there's a new episode that's dropping, or even when we're like,
he's got the sign,
we got
we
the
got
sign.
catchphrases.
Yeah. Every time that like I have someone message me saying that like something that I said on the podcast like resonated with them, or like they challenged me on a specific point, or anything like that, is like so interesting to me, because it really goes to show the value of open conversation, right? Like there's things that a responsibility that we have to like talk our shit sometimes, right? And it's nice to know that people like to listen to this, people care about it, people engage with it, people challenge us, and that's to me like a measure of success for us.
Yeah, I have an extension to that answer, but it's going to lead into this next question. What is your most memorable or humiliating moment on the podcast? Shout out to Sal, he's in the back over there, he asked that. In terms of memorable, do you remember Black History Month this year? Yeah. When we got a chance to... We got a chance to speak. So Cassette Advertising Agency got us to speak on a panel, or like just have a podcast discussion in front of all of their employees.
Literally the entire agency.
Like hundreds of their employees. And we just had a conversation about being two Black men that have been in the advertising industry and kind of work in marketing, and giving our perspective and our experience, and just having people listen to that for an hour, just like what you guys are doing right now. You're listening to us talk about whatever topics, and we just kind of freestyled it. We gave an authentic view of like what it felt like to be young Black men working in the industry, and to even be like tapped on the shoulder to do that was like, oh, we're being recognized, like people appreciate and value what we have to say. And they paid us, so I mean.
They did pay us. we didn't do it for free. But what I found so funny about that too, it's like I used to work at that agency too, right? So I was like, I was looking at my the people who are attending, I'm like, all right, let's see if any of my fucking old teams here, or like, you know, anybody who didn't show up, I'm gonna call them out for it. Like, you know, but yeah, that was a really, really cool moment for us, and we hope to do more things like that.
Do you have a memorable or humiliating one? I don't think I have a humiliating one, personally.
No, I don't think so. Like, other than the guy that we already talked about.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah, that was humiliating. We're gonna delete that episode. I'm kidding.
No memorable? Nothing else?
I mean, like, our success today. Like, I mean, I feel like we've overcome like
It's gonna be a moment.
a ton of hurdles. Like, this is a great event. We're, you know, really excited about it for sure.
All right, another one from Salvatore over there. What has running a podcast taught you about yourself? I'll let you go first.
That I say the word like a lot. I would say.
And you do a lot.
Yeah. It's like, I've had people tell me, it's like, why don't you go into radio? Because like every 2 seconds I'm like, but you know, I've learned to like my voice a little bit more. To be honest. Yeah, it's like weird to hear yourself played back on something. Like, and it takes a long, long time to get used to, but a lot of positive reinforcement helps that, I would say. But I think that, I don't know, like, I don't want to like brag, but I think that like I offer a decent perspective. It's like different from a lot of the people that I've come up in the industry with. And I think people want to hear more stuff like this. They want to hear stories from people who have different experiences. And, you know, whether that's me, you, or any of the guests that we have on the podcast, I think it's like super important for us to be able to have a platform like this. And I'm starting to recognize that now.
Yeah, straight up. I'm saying now, but like so I edit the podcast and I listen to it every time, and I still don't like my voice, and I'll laugh.
I don't like it either. Trust
me.
I'm kidding.
Like, I feel like I have a weird laugh when I'm listening to it, and all that shit is so annoying. But I think you know. It is what it is at this point.
That's another one. It is.
Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. But what it taught me about myself, I would say, how much I like connecting with different kinds of people. Yeah. Like when we haven't done guests in a while, but those are my favorite episodes when you could have someone like Fanny, Jerome, you know, different people pull up and learn about them beyond just like what I know from our friendship. Like learn about why they got into their industry. That doesn't come up all the time, you know. Learn about what are their goals for the future and like what's their vision for themselves and for the brand that they manage, whatever it is. Saying it again, but like that was really dope for me to just like connect with other people on a different level outside of just a friendship, and you know, meet so many different people across so many different industries.
So next time you're like talking to a friend that you talk to all the time, ask them what their life goals are and how they got into
what's their vision.
What's their vision? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Start a podcast and then do that. No, I'm just kidding.
We got, has your vision changed in regards to where you would be in life at age 30?
Okay, this one's very directed at me.
Shout out to Ryan.
What was the full question? Would it say, how has your vision changed in regards to where you be in life at age 30? I don't think it's, for me, it hasn't changed at all, really. Like, I still feel like I'm like 18 years old in certain ways, right?
That's a red flag, right? That's
laugh it up, all right? No, but I mean, like, I think like life's a journey, right? Like you make mistakes along the way. Like I didn't really have like a vision for where I would be when I was 30 years old, right? Like 31 now.
At 19, you didn't think about that, of like where I'd be at 30?
Bro, I didn't even know where I was going to school. Like I was like, I don't even know what I'm having for lunch.
I guess
so. Yeah. Like there's a few, you know what I mean? I don't know. I genuinely feel like that. I don't think like you're ever done learning or finished learning. Or like,
I think I had like an unrealistic view. Like I thought, you know, I'm not 30 yet, but I think, you know, obviously you'd have like a home and all that, and I'd be top of my career. But like, I think that's changed where like, I don't care to be like the VP of my role, or I don't care to like climb the highest of the corporate ranks anymore, you know? I think it's like, let me just get my bread, let me be with my friends, let me be with my family, be in good health and enjoy my life.
Yeah, totally. You know what I mean? I think that like that
I guess perspective is like really came to life like between like 25 and 30 for me. Like when I mean, you guys heard the story about rakes. Like I was like really excited about what I was doing at the time, and then like I transformed and learned that like, you know, work isn't necessarily everything that is important to me. Obviously, like I think I've said this before on the podcast, I think a lot of people find purpose through their job and purpose through work. I think that's really great. That's super important for you to like not be bored doing what you're doing. I think you should genuinely enjoy what you do, but I don't think that that should be like the definition of who you are and how you present yourself, right? Like there's so much more to people than their jobs, and that's something that I've learned a lot about myself, and like spending time with like my friends, my girlfriend, you know, my family, and, you know, enjoying my life, and Dak, of course. Yes, of course. Sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. I think that's something that's like kind of been a shifted perspective for me in, you know, my early 30s.
All right, let's end on this last question. We already answered what inspired us to start a podcast, but what keeps us going? And this is from the homie Sal again.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think he's locked for a prize right now. Like for sure he's locked for a prize.
Crank them all.
I would say like,
What keeps you going?
I would say like the evolution, right? Like the moment that I think that we've peaked and, you know, we're not having fun with it, I think is when we'll kind of like probably start to take a bit of a step back. But I genuinely enjoy doing this. I have fun, and I think that like the direction that we're going in allows us to like continue to be flexible and enjoy ourselves, enjoy the chemistry, and like start leaning into our characters a little bit more, right? Like the fun part is about the vibe. Yeah, no, that's the fun part. It's like I said at the beginning, when we started this, it was so regimented, and I think that we were doing things to like, we would like listen to podcasts, or at least me, and be like, okay, like how did this successful podcast set itself up, and like what was the formula there? And I think that like the moment that I stopped like thinking about that, and more so like just like leaning into like laying on the couch, just like talking shit about like, you know, the latest ad campaign that fucking whatever agency came out with.
We used to have it so structured, like all these talking points, and now it's a bullet point.
Yeah, it's literally just like we have questions on a screen, and it's just like let's just like talk, and like a lot of it comes from the heart. And like like I mean, a lot of people probably won't necessarily agree with the types of opinions and stuff that we have, which is like the beauty of it. Like I want people to disagree. I want to start.
I like when we disagree.
I know, but like
it happens every now and then, but it makes for a beautiful episode when we just are like challenging each other and not.
I actually disagree with that, but no, I'm just kidding. No, but absolutely 100%. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's the fact that the podcast is evolving as we are evolving.
Yeah.
So like I said, you know, in the beginning, it was very structured, like Malik was saying as well, because we were very structured in our careers and in life, you know, but as we start to loosen up and talk about things in tech and talk about things in social media and diversity issues and things like that, these are like evolved perspectives for us. And now we can have the podcast follow us with it.
Yeah, I'd love to have an episode if we could like go back in time and like interview ourselves when we first started.
Oh, geez,
I think that would be
with a button up and dress shoes and all that.
Yeah.
It's not
you know, I think that would have been a lot of fun if we could go back and interview our old selves, because I think that like there would have been a lot of change.
Definitely.
Right? So
Malik, that is.
That's our episode right here. Well, let's open
for the recorded part. I feel like we should end the recording and then do a little live aspect.
Sounds good to me.
All right, should we just say peace?
That is it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Peace.